Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you are doing well. I miss you guys. Today, we're going to go over the US and Canada culture and econ notes. You should have picked these notes up in class, but if you didn't, I do have a couple extra copies for you. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to try and make these as short, simple, and painless as possible. My cat's also here learning about US and Canada culture and econ with us. So first, looking at US and Canada at a glance, population, remembering that Canada is much bigger than the US, but a lot of it is not inhabited, especially the farther north you go because the climate changes, especially again, remembering the Canadian Shield, physical geography. Population density is included in this, urbanization, how much an area has been urbanized or cities have been created, suburbs. You'll see that the US and Canada are relatively similar in their urbanization. Other things, median age, population growth, how much people are moving into an area, migration rate, infant mortality, remembering that this shows an area that is developed versus developing in a lot of cases. So we'll see that both the US and Canada are developed. Life expectancy, 78 and 81. So Canadians are living a little bit longer. Maybe that's because they're culturally known for being a little nicer. Maybe that means they go through a little less stress. Who knows? Total fertility rate and how many people are foreign born and then move in. So the United States has been called a melting pot because of the many different ethnicities and cultural groups that live here. Because of migration, the US and Canada are both multicultural societies with increasingly diverse populations. So you're going to see all different types of people as far as race, religion, all those things, languages. So it's also why we offer so many different styles of food. You'll see different types of clothing stores where different ethnicities will often purchase clothes. Maybe they have like turbans or dresses that are needed. So we have that here. We also have, depending on where you go, signs in different languages to accommodate the fact that we are so diverse. So it is believed that the first people to inhabit North America came by the way of a land bridge between Asia and Alaska thousands of years ago. That's that Bering land bridge. Now we'll hear it as the Bering Strait because it no longer is above water. Again, thousands of years ago, you see that this is connecting Canada, US to Europe, Asia, that landmass there. Which is not the case today, folks. So, other history, the people who lived in North America before it was colonized are called the first Americans, excuse me. So there's that for you guys to fill in. I'm not sure if you guys can see my little screen share bar that keeps coming up. Hopefully you can't, but it's been getting kind of in the way. Okay, next slide. Both the United States and Canada were colonized by the British, the Europeans, because, listen, friends, U.S., Jamestown, the first economically successful colony settled by the British. You all should know this. The first was actually St. Augustine in Florida, but didn't really make any money or anything like that. So it hasn't gotten that whole impressive title that Jamestown has. So Canada would actually first be settled by the French. So Jamestown, the first permanent settlement in the New World, and it was because it was new to the Europeans from the Old World. So the French would colonize Canada But other groups that also settled throughout US and Canada and North America as a whole, French, Dutch, British, and the Spanish. We have the Spanish, British, and the Dutch all throughout the US, as well as the French, when colonization was happening throughout. Of course, here in our area, we would see a mostly British presence. But the further you got west, you would see a more Spanish presence. You would see French and Dutch more north. So all of this was present as well in the US. The French would colonize Canada, as well as some other groups, but they mostly get that culturally French influence. So, with that being said, a result is that the heritage of both the US and Canada reflects the many different kinds of people that settled it. Again, language. Think about why we speak English. It's because that's what the British spoke. And of course, our dialect, our tone has changed, but so in New Orleans, people speak both English and French. Just like as you move further southwest in the U.S., you'll see that people speak both. My other cat's here, both English and Spanish. So in New Orleans, you're seeing a strong French influence, and we'll see some pictures of how the French and English have both put their influence into New Orleans. The French colonized this part of the U.S. So again, further west, seeing some Spanish and French there. Of course, everyone was intermingling at this time. Thinking about that word globalization. Of course, it was more limited then. We didn't have internet communications and things like that that make it so convenient. But people were still negotiating, intermingling. So the French also settled Quebec. So that explains why Canada is a bilingual nation. Art and architecture both reflect the cultural heritage. So here's those pictures I was talking about in New Orleans. So this first picture, the one of this pink house, you see how it has the square balcony openings. That is a very English style, whereas these carriage ports, the ones that have the arch, are a French style. So again, seeing how the architecture even takes on this different culture than what we might often see other places. Here's some other examples. New Orleans is not the only place that does the horse and carriages. Often Savannah, Georgia also does it. Often very historic places that again have the influence of a lot of the French, British, will have some of this influence even today as a tourist attraction. So this is the amount of English speaking at home. Sorry, trying to move this little bar again. Okay, percentage of people speaking English at home. So you'll see that in Canada, 1971, in Canada, less Quebec. We're going to talk about this more later. Anyways, just know that Quebec in 1971 had a little bit more people speaking French. People still speak a lot of French, and this is an example of that. So looking at the signs and the license plates that are in French. And we watched that Tom Brokaw video, and at the end, he talked about the Canadians not being as patriotic as the Americans. And there we saw a sort of patriotic form. So that was cool. All right. So government. This stuff is important. Remember, this is not political geography. This is cultural geography. So both the US and Canada have a democratic form of government, which people are allowed to vote, and each has a federal system. This means that the states or provincial governments, if you're in Canada, have some power alongside the national government. That's why states in the US are allowed to make different laws than each other. But then the national government, at least in the US, we say the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So here's a fun little graphic organizer for you all to I definitely write down in your notes. If it's not in your notes, write it down somewhere, please. So settled first by the British is the US. Settled first by the French is Canada. But declared independence from Great Britain, when did they do it? The US is 1776. Please know this. Independence was actually declared on July 2nd, but wasn't ratified, wasn't fully passed and known until July 4th. For Canada, it would be a little bit later, almost 100 years later, at 1867. Head of government, the US has a president. We vote that president in. Canada has a prime minister. Legislative body, again, this is where they differ. Congress and Parliament. Country is divided into states. And in Canada, we have provinces and territories. Looking at the religion, again, a big cultural factor. This is the US, so we'll see in the southern region of the US, we have a lot of Baptist population, and then mixed throughout outside of that southern region, we're going to see a lot of Catholic. If you have any questions on this, you can ask when I get back. When we're looking at Canada, we're seeing that they're mostly Roman Catholic there. And then the other big chunk is Protestant, which is just branches. Protestantism is branches that came out of Roman Catholic. You should learn about that in a different history class. Others are not religious or practice another type of religion. Some of our cultural pastimes in the US, we have baseball. And then in Canada, we have hockey. I would say that football and baseball are both big cultural things in the US. Just like soccer, football is in South America. We have like baseball and American football that are very large here. And then Canada has ice hockey. Again, why might they play hockey so much? It's because it's so cold. So it's really enabled them to practice and get good at that. Human environment interaction. Look at there. All right. The two countries have good relationships with each other. Again, besties. Although Canada does struggle to maintain a national identity, like how they are their own thing and they're not just like US part two. Again, we saw that their government is quite different, but they don't have a strong national identity, as even though they are a strong national presence. Thinking about the role they've had in wars, in helping us, the US, in multiple occasions, they're just not as recognized, I fear. So between our nations is the world's longest unfortified border, which means we don't need to have anything there stopping us. We're kind of cool. We trust each other for the most part. So when it comes to the economic geography, getting into the second half of this, the US and Canada, do you think they're developed or developing countries? We've kind of already talked about this when we were looking at infant mortality. They are going to be developed. So think now about what some characteristics of developed countries are. Okay, I hope you said high literacy rates, high GDP, low infant mortality rates. What else? Oh, good health care, like long life, what's the word? Life expectancies. Okay, there we go. Sorry, words weren't coming to me there. I hope you said all of those things because those are characteristics of a developed country. So, hey, let's talk about them again. High literacy rates, diverse, multicultural populations, diversified economies, different people in different sectors. Money is coming from different places. We're not just a primary sector where everyone's farming. People can be quaternary, quinary, tertiary. High standards of living, highly urbanized, lots of cities, highly developed infrastructure, skyscrapers, shopping malls, all those things. Major exporters of technology, consumer goods, information systems. GIS is one of those, Geographic Information System. Hello. And foods. Both members of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. So please know these two. We're gonna talk more. Excuse me. We're gonna talk more about these, but hopefully in the next couple slides. If not, I'll come back to it. And both are rich, developing rich supply of mineral, energy, and forest resources. Again, we've got to be careful with forest resources so that we don't cause deforestation. So highly mobile populations, the Sun Belt and the Rust Belt. Where and what are these? You should have had to do these on your US and Canada crash course. If you haven't, please work on those today. So Sun Belt is going to be that southern portion of the US, and the Rust Belt is going to be around Philadelphia, Detroit, where we're having a lot of big cities. So here's a picture of the Sun Belt in this southernmost region, expanding from the southeast to the southwest. Again, this is where the climate's going to be the most warm. And again, as you move farther west, you also get out of some of that humidity. You're getting into more of a desert climate. So you're having less humidity. So while the heat is stronger, it actually doesn't feel as hot as it might if it did here. Rust Belt, again, I don't have a picture on a map of where it is, but this is going to be in that north mid-east region where we saw a lot of factories in the beginning. Oh, there it is. I did good at explaining it. So Michigan, Pennsylvania, bits of Ohio, all of that. So multinational corporations, let's talk about that. Nike, Microsoft, McDonald's, they go everywhere. So many large companies practice outsourcing. This is giving business to people in other countries because they're cheaper to hire. Remember, comparative advantage. When you can do something more cost efficient, faster, and easier than a competitor. And outsourcing allows a lot of people to do this. So call centers, if your parents have ever called a customer service and heard someone that maybe wasn't the easiest to understand because they don't speak the same first language as you, that's an example of outsourcing. So without reading word for word from the slide, make sure you get this stuff down. If you have any questions, please write those down. Bring them to me Wednesday. We're going to spend a little extra time reviewing before the test just because I'm not there today. So, center of world financial markets, thinking about the New York Stock Exchange, widening gap between the rich and the poor, which is not a great thing. Having little middle class, and so a lot of people are either rich or a lot of people are either poor, and it's hard to maintain. Export of US culture via the global marketplace. Hey, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, music, and blue jeans. Sustained economic growth. So we do typically have a good GDP that is steadily increasing. We're in the business cycle, we're usually expanding. We're not usually dipping into the negatives where we're going to see ourselves in recessions and possibly, if it lasts a long time, a depression, which is really good compared to when we look at some other countries that are completely poor. Cities of importance. Cities serve as the center of business and trade of a nation. They also serve as cultural landmarks with diverse people, buildings, and jobs. So we're going to talk about some important cities, and I promise we're almost done. You have done wonderful. Thanks for hanging in. So Think of some important cities. New York, Washington, D.C., maybe. Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Those are some things I think of. So here's a picture of DC. Here's a picture of San Fran. Can you think of any important cities in Canada? And then I'm going to say some that I think of. Toronto, Quebec City, Montreal. What did I put? Oh, Toronto is what I put. So, but these are the Toronto suburbs. I just think they're really cool. Suburbia in Toronto is scary. You can Google it. So, major North American cities. A lot of these we listed. Hey, Norfolk's on there. So look at us. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit. You can read the rest. In Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Ottawa, Calgary. Calgary, Quebec City, Winnipeg, all those good things. I promise I'm almost done. I've been talking a lot, it feels like. I'm sorry. All right. Cities and monuments often reflect things about the culture of an area. We're going to talk about Sacramento and Omaha. These became important because of their location on the Transcontinental Railroad. Write this down, star it. I'm pretty sure there's a question on the test about this. So those two cities, Sacramento and Omaha, became important because of their location on the Transcontinental Railroad. That helped people move. It helped cultures move from one place to another, showing movement. Here's that. So sometimes you can just mention the name of a city and it brings to mind certain images for people. If I said New York City, you might think of Times Square. You might think of the stock exchange. Or if I said the stock exchange, you would think of New York, hopefully, even though you haven't gone through economics likely yet. So cities you need to know include Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, and Quebec, and Vancouver, British Columbia. Bay of Fundy, we're going to look at that on the last slide. We're almost done, I hope. All right. In the United States, we have Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, New York City. These are all important. A megalopolis is a vast metropolitan area, so a long stretching amount of cities. So Boswash stretches over 500 miles from Boston to Washington, D.C. So Boswash, it's just this long strip of urbanized suburban style area. So metropolitan. So this is Boswash, the Northeast Seaboard. Excuse me. This is a very large megalopolis to help identify that word. So the fall line through here. And then as we're finishing up, which monuments in our country reflect our culture, do you think? Maybe the White House, for sure. So Capitol Building, White House, those buildings, the Lincoln Memorial, all of those things, National Mall, kind of represent our country. Again, DC, this is the Capitol Building. It might not look like that now. Last time I was there, they had it all closed off. So who knows? This is Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Statue of Liberty. Oh, yeah, no Independence Hall, please. If you don't, I know it's on your crash course too, but please know it. All right, Statue of Liberty, you all should know that, New York City. And then the Gateway to the West, I know one of you guys, either first hour or third hour, we talked about the gateway to the west, or the Louisville Arch. This is signifies westward expansion and those that traveled and took opportunities in the West. A lot of people, the pioneers had a hard journey over to the West. So Gateway Arch, St. Louis, Missouri. This is a highly generated photo, it feels. We've been using this slide for forever, but Golden Gate Bridge, San Francisco. It is actually not gold, like real gold or anything like that, if you didn't know. Oh, hey, here's some other things that I mentioned. Washington Memorial, Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument, excuse me, Lincoln Memorial, the White House. And then things that US and Canada share. These are the last couple slides. Thank you for hanging in. I feel like at the end, I'm going to ask you to do something just to make sure that you watched all the way through. Things that the US and Canada share are wheat fields and skyscrapers and shopping malls, which you can see in pictures here. I don't think MacArthur's open anymore. Influence of the automobile. We have gas stations now kind of spread out and throughout off of interstates, motels, easy places for people to stop in their travels and spend the night. Interstate highways speed up the process, so you don't have to stop at every red light or go through every small town. You can hit the interstate. And then drive up services where people will help you on your way, like ATMs, fast food, drive up services. And this is Bay of Fundy, looking at the extreme high and low tides here. Again, this is more of a physical geography thing, but thinking about how this impacts an area's economics, how people have to interact with the environment here, how culture is present in these photos. So think about those things. That is it for these slides. These slides will be posted along with this video so that you can copy down everything that you need. Thank you for watching this. This wasn't too long. This wasn't too bad. So, for a little fun credit opportunity, if you made it to this point, I want you to email me or Canvas message me. Oh, that's a lot of Canvas messages. It's okay. I love it. I want you to Canvas message me what your favorite Halloween movie is that is not terrifying or rated poorly. Okay? All right. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. I miss you guys. We have the test on Wednesday. So please study, finish your crash course, pick up that test review. I believe, no, you have the economies reading and questions, and then you're going to pick up the test review. Complete that. I'm going to post the answer key tomorrow, Tuesday. And then we have our test on Wednesday. We will take a little extra time to review, but again, you have everything you need in the crash course, the test review, your notes and your activities from this unit. If you have any questions other than telling me what your favorite Halloween movie is, please let me know, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye.